Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here today. I originally thought this episode was going to be on something else, and then I changed gears. This episode is going to be focusing on movement. What type of movements are good for chronic illness? What feels good to you, and how it's gone over the last 14 years for me, and what helped, what hasn't, what has caused some challenges. Because the more I sat with it, the more I realized I wanted to talk about something that feels more hopeful. Because when I got diagnosed, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to move as well. What if I stop being able to walk? What ifs again? We've talked about those what ifs, but movement is involved in now. How much am I going to be able to move? How much am I going to be able to exercise? I don't know what my legs are going to do. So this is, I guess, just my journey with it. Today, I want to talk about specifically what role movement plays in helping me regulate my nervous system, what role it has played in even how I teach. I've been in the fitness industry for nearly 20 years, really dived into the health and wellness side of it. I had been teaching fitness for 5 years and specializing in Pilates when I even got diagnosed. So just realized this is not medical advice. This is simply my experience and what I have learned over the last 14 years since I was diagnosed, and what continues to help me feel more connected to my body. And it has changed, year to year. What helps one year, sometimes I have to pivot and change. I just don't want to be afraid of those changes and afraid of movement. So if you're someone living with a chronic illness, a nervous system disorder, anything that causes that muscle fatigue, joint pain, arthritis, or you just feel constantly stressed or in anxiety or dysregulated nervous system, hope this episode helps you. I want this to feel just like taking a deep breath in and going, I'm doing better than I thought I was. Because sometimes it's so overwhelming when we think about, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough exercise? Am I doing the exercise that's going to actually help this condition? Where am I at? So let's start with why movement matters so much, especially when we are talking about the brain and the nervous system. Now, MS is a central nervous system disorder, and sometimes the signals from the brain to the muscles don't entirely connect. So coordination can be an issue. Our nervous system is constantly taking in information and deciding how safe we are. When we're stressed, when we're anxious, when we're overwhelmed, when we've overdone it, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, right? This is our fight or flight. This is what's telling us something's going on. Now, this isn't always bad. Sometimes we actually need that jolt of something's happening. That activation, like I said, isn't always bad. The problem is when we stay in that, right? And then our body stays in that stress, and our body has no other way but for that to come out physically. And I've talked about it before. My body had stayed in that kind of stress for way too long. Movement gives that activation somewhere to go. So I have learned when I'm feeling anxious or stressed, I crave movement. I crave exercise. When we move, when we get our blood pump in, challenge coordination, or use large ranges of motion, we're creating opportunities for the brain to connect. Isn't that amazing? I love that so much. We're creating opportunities for new neural pathways. And this is where neuroplasticity comes in. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to form new pathways, new neural pathways. It's so awesome. I have felt it. I have seen it work in me, and my brain will find new ways around things when things get hard. And one of the best ways to encourage it is through movement, especially movement that is intentional, coordinated, and varies. So we don't want to just stick to the same thing. We want to challenge that neuroplasticity, right? I like to explain it this way. Imagine you just moved to a new town and you know one way to get to the grocery store. But after a few weeks, you learn a couple of different ways. And even longer time of living somewhere, you now know the best time of day to go, when traffic's going to be the heaviest, And if there's going to be a roadblock, you know how to get around it and the best way to get to that grocery store. Well, that's what your brain does. It sees little construction roadblocks and it starts to learn different ways to get around things. That is its greatest ability, is to learn these new ways, but we do have to challenge it. We want it to be able to do that quicker over time. Now, a new neural pathway, when you learn something new, it takes 90 days to a year for it to really get that down. So let's say you start a new class, a new fitness class, and you decide day one that you didn't like it. Well, because it felt challenging, right? We tripping on our feet and you're like, nope, not for me. But you give it time and you're like, okay, I just need to practice a little more. That's because that new neural pathway does take time. So the more experiences you give the brain, the more adaptable it becomes. That's why I encourage so many people to try something new often. Don't just stay in the same. Don't just stay in the same. Challenge and do the hard. When we challenge our bodies with coordination, balance, and functional movement, or even learning a new exercise, we're building options. Don't you want options? I want to feel like I have options. So, the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, when we start that exercise, that's part of our nervous system. When we're into that recovery stage, our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, now gets to kick in and recover. So, we're learning even through movement how to regulate our nervous system. When I was first diagnosed with MS, I was exhausted. I needed a nap every day. Would do any small amount of a bike ride or teaching a class, and I would be done for the day. So I learned to be afraid of doing too much. I learned to be afraid of what would make my symptoms worse. So I started doing less, assuming that I was saving my body. I adjusted my life dramatically. I stepped back on my classes. I was a lot more careful, a lot more cautious, and I held back a lot more, because I thought I was conserving energy. And while that is true, some days you need that, I almost stepped back too far. And it made sense at the time, but it also came from fear. If I did too much, what if I threw myself into a relapse that ended up with some permanent damage? Over time, though, I began to realize something important. This wasn't a diagnosis that meant I would always be at my worst. And once I started figuring out that I could feel better, I started challenging myself and taking more risks with how much exercise I was doing and doing harder things. There would be hard days. You will have hard days. There would be flare ups, and I would manage those. I would take the risks that were needed for those. But there was also space to learn what supported my body instead of avoiding it. Pilates helped me early on. And Pilates challenges you with coordination as it is and those fine motor skills. And so, where I was having issues with balance when I was first diagnosed, Pilates was a huge help. The breath control and the strength without overdoing it. I didn't have to go into heavy weightlifting. So, Pilates in that beginning, was something I really loved that I already had. As the years went on, though, I wanted more. I wanted to be outside more. I wanted to hike, and I would be afraid sometimes of, like, I would start out on a hike and then I would turn back around so I could make sure that I would have enough energy to get back, because I was constantly wondering if my legs were going to cooperate. My biggest fear at the time was that I would get halfway out on a hike and then be too exhausted to get back. Eventually, though, my husband and I made the decision to move 5 hours south to be in a place that was warmer and more consistent access to the outdoors. All these hikes are 15, 20 minutes drive away from me. And that has been the biggest saving grace for my body. I cannot believe the difference of when I first moved here. I would go on this little, like, quarter-mile hike and I would struggle getting up and down the rocks, and I'd have to have a person to help brace me to get up or down. 6 years later, though, I don't need that. I'm off all disease-modifying drugs. That is my story, though. It's not recommended for everyone to do it this way, but like I said, this is my experience. So, coming off all of those meds because I have changed my lifestyle, my diet, I'm in the sunshine more. I am able to now get out. I can do a 2-mile hike easy. I strength train. I do Pilates. I walk my dog. I am active every single day, every day. But some days are more active than others. I still know when I need to rest. I still know that I need cognitive challenge just as much as I need the strength training. So I listen very closely to my body and what it needs. I back off when it's needed. Absolutely. You will find where that sweet spot is, when you need to back off, when you can do more, when you need to rest more. I mean, after 14 years of this, I have really found what is the best for me. And I can rest up if I know I've got a bigger activity coming up. I rest up more. Healing isn't linear. Movement isn't static, right? You don't have to just choose one way. I have a goal. I wasn't going to put this in here, but I have a goal to learn how to surf. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, but I'm going to try. um, it has always been, I shouldn't say always, but since I've been into paddleboarding, it looks fun. And maybe I'll totally eat it and we'll learn a big lesson, but I want to still continue to try and do hard things. You have to find movement you actually enjoy. If you like walking, if you like hiking, if it's swimming, if it's getting out and walking your dog, getting out with your kids and playing, if you love Pilates, but you have to really like the movement you're doing. If you're taking Zumba and you hate it, you're not going to stick to it. That's proven. You're not going to stick to something you don't love doing. I will say though, over the past 10 years, I have found that one of the things that is non-negotiable is mobility, adding in mobility exercises. I don't care how fit you are. Adding mobility, it's got to be part of your routine. We've got to keep doing those exercises that are full range of motion to support the joints, your circulation, and your nervous system. Had I had done that from the very beginning, I think I would have been able to save some things that are much harder for me now. Strength training, of course, matters for everyone, but especially when you're getting in your 40s and 50s, we need this for bone density, hormone health, and long-term independence is getting that strength training in. Cardio doesn't have to be so intense that you're exhausted by it. Short bouts count. Tabata style cardio, great. Add those in. Even when I'm out walking, I will add short bouts of picking up the pace to challenge my heart rate, get the blood pumping even more, right? We want to support the whole body system. For everybody, we want things that you can support you if you're in a chair, if you're in a wheelchair, being able to get up off the floor, being able to get up and down to a mat. These are why mobility, exercises matter. The goal is not intensity. The goal is input. Movement that challenges coordination, like yoga, like Pilates, dance. I'm not the best dancer, but I have taught a cardio dance type aerobic fitness for nearly 10 years. And beyond that, I had taught Zumba for a little while. Totally not the best at it, but I love it. And I love that the choreography challenges my brain. I have to memorize these steps and keep my brain active. Doing things that require deep breathing. This also matters. It gets you breathing deeper, helps regulate the nervous system. Practice that inhale for 4 counts, hold it for a few breaths, and then exhale. Doing these throughout the day, so good to get that diaphragm working and moving, pushing those toxins out. We can talk about more breath later on. If I could simplify this into a few practical tips, here's what I would say. First, take the guesswork out when you start or want to start a workout program. Do your research. Yes, we have a lot available to us, but hire somebody. If that's available to you, hire somebody, hire a trainer that knows what they're doing, but research their credentials and get a plan. Whether you see them every week or twice a week, up to you. But they can also just write out a plan and say, work on this for the next couple months. Check back in with me. Second, do things that feel good and try new things. You don't know if you like something until you try it. And then if you really hate it, sure, let it go. But you may find these new exercises and new ways of working out that you really enjoy. Third, start small. Do not take on a big, huge fitness program. Start small. Start from the very beginning. There are even times I've had someone that's got a chronic illness that maybe they've been weightlifting for years and years, and I still back them down to the beginning and rebuild for varying reasons. Habits matter more than intensity when we're talking about exercise. Set a goal. Your nervous system doesn't need to feel threatened, right? So set small goals. Set a goal that is attainable. Set a goal that just gives you something to work towards and make sure there is a reward at the end of it. Be kind to your body. Some days you'll do more, some days you'll do less. Just be okay with that. Many of my friends are 15 years younger than me without a chronic condition. And I think, oh my gosh, they get to do so much. I can't go there though. I have to listen to my body and do what's right for me. And that is where that regulation comes in. I'm good with that. I'm 53, pretty healthy. As a matter of fact, even with MS, I am healthier now. I know this is gonna get you guys. I am healthier now than I was in my 20s, my 30s, because of the exercise and movement that I have been able to figure out and do for myself. It's not about pushing through. It's not about finding the hardest limit you can reach, but it has been about finding the right movement and what I can still do to challenge my body and still build that muscle. So again, it's this invitation to reconnect to your brain. Every step, every stretch, every full body movement is that pathway towards balance. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove strength. I love that so much. And this is so personal. You're not proving this to anybody else. This is all about how you feel. How do you feel? You just have to show up again and again and again that feels safe and right for you. It's the most miraculous thing when that all comes together, when your brain finally says, this is what works for me. This is what feels good. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope I've given you some tips. Just really I want you to really focus on tuning into what your body feels like, tuning into even in the middle of that workout, being able to say, yes, this feels good, or I need to back down a little bit. Give yourself permission. I modify even when I take a class or am working out with a friend, I give myself permission to modify. I want you to feel like you're healing. I want you to reconnect with your body. You're not alone in this. It can be very overwhelming to take on new workouts when you're worried. Is it going to be too much? And again, we get caught in that fear base. But I want you to take a deep inhale and exhale for me right here. Know that you're doing better than you think you are. This is that first step to saying there might be different things I could be doing and new ways. And there is help out there. And if I can help you connect to that help, please message me because I will certainly help you. I've looked even in for people who live in different states. I can generally pull up a Pilates studio and tell you if that looks like it's going to be legit because I know the things to look for. And if you have questions about where to start, what exercises might be good for you, good formats to start with, I certainly am happy to help you get into the right direction. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you were here and we were able to share in this space together. I hope these tips helped you. If you would do me a favor, just leave a good review, 5-star review. I hope this episode has really benefited you or some advice that you can give to a loved one because I really want us to be better than fine together. That's what it's all about, right? All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.